Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. I am so glad you are here. Let's dive right in. There's a lawsuit currently being filed in the United States that is going to have huge implications. It's going to affect religion. It's going to affect Christian and religious schools. It's going to affect Title IX. It's going to affect the Department of Education. It could hardly be bigger. Let's talk about what it is. The case is called Hunter v. Department of Education. And what it is a lawsuit filed by 33 LGBTQ students who attended religious colleges and universities. They have filed what's called a class action lawsuit against the Department of Education. What they're saying is that the religious exemption that the Department of Education gives to religious colleges and universities, according to the provisions of Title IX. All of us know what Title IX is. It governs a lot of issues related to universities and equality and what have you. Been very good for the most part in this country up till now. But they're saying that the religious exemption granted by Title IX to religious schools allows these schools to engage in prejudice, bigoted, and damaging actions towards gay and otherwise students. This is a pretty important lawsuit. The Title IX's religious exemption says this: an educational institution which is controlled by a religious organization. That means sort of a denominational school, so a Baptist school or a Pentecostal school or a Catholic school. An educational institution which is controlled by a religious organization can discriminate if the ban on discrimination based on sex would not be consistent with the religious tenets of such organization. So, for example, you go to, I'm going to make up a name here just to be goofy and to keep it from talking about any one school. You go to Mansfield Bible College, and Mansfield Bible College holds let's say, the traditional view, a traditional Christian view, which is that homosexuality is a sinful choice. Therefore, it tells its students you can't engage in homosexual sex or be publicly gay. You're going to have to work to comply with traditional Christianity at this school. If you want to go to another school, if you want to be part of the gay community at another educational institution, be free. But at this school, Mansfield Bible College, the intention is to form people according to traditional Christianity. Well, Title IX allows that. Title IX says as long as Mansfield Bible College is connected to a broader religious organization, let's say whatever, the United Methodist Church or the Baptist, Southern Baptists or whomever, Presbyterians, whatever denomination, then they are allowed to discriminate if it's their religion that's determining that discrimination. Now, discrimination doesn't mean beating on somebody or, putting them on stage in front of 10,000 students and criticizing them or whipping them or something, but it does mean making a distinction. It does mean that you are allowed to discriminate in the sense that your faith calls you to discriminate. Well, what's happened is that students who formerly attended schools like Liberty University or Wheaton University or other major conservative Christian schools, they're now saying we were discriminated against, we were harmed. They tried to pray the gay away. They tried to engage in conversion therapy. I was singled out. I was removed from the student body when I came out as gay and admitted my love for a person of my same gender, etc., etc. When that happened, I was harmed. And the Department of Education is allowing this because Title IX allows these schools to maintain a certain bias about these matters based on their faith. So, these 33 students on the same day, all together in a class action, filed against the Department of Education. And what they're trying to do is remove the religious exemption under Title IX. They're saying the Department of Education shouldn't allow this. Now, I have expressed many times on this podcast the fact that I don't have some raging hatred of gays at all. I had a gay roommate in college. I didn't know was gay, but I love him dearly. Loved him then, love him now. And I have, because of Bev's involvement, my wife's involvement in the music industry with gay friends, I'm not ragingly anti-gay. At the same time, I have to say that I do have a very difficult time with how nearly our entire society is judging almost everything according to sex, according to what you do with your private parts. And so these students, these now publicly out gay students, knew what kind of schools they were attending. I don't want them to be, I don't want bigotry against them. I don't want them to be harmed. But if you go to Liberty University and you think of yourself as being gay, you're putting yourself in a situation of conflict. It's almost like going in the Army, defining yourself as lazy. In other words, you define yourself a certain way, and then you put yourself in a circumstance where, of course, there's a certain amount of opposition to that approach. There are many, many schools, the majority of schools in America, you can be happily gay. Why go to Liberty? Why go to Wheaton? Why go to a Southern Baptist Bible College? Why? Why go to these schools if that's what you want? This is the question I think needs to be asked, and it's not a matter of bigotry to ask it. It's I want gays in America to be unmolested. I want them to have privileges and rights, even if I disagree with their lifestyle. That's what a democracy is. That's what a republic is. We disagree with each other. My Muslim friends and I disagree about religion. I've said before on this podcast, my LDS friends and I disagree about religion. We disagree about things. We disagree about ethics. We disagree about stuff. Fine. Doesn't mean we can't join for great causes. Doesn't mean we can't be friends. But, I don't go to Brigham Young and expect them to accommodate everything I believe. I don't enroll as a student and then say, okay, now you got to do what I believe is right for me. There are lots of schools that I can fit into and be free to live however I want. Why go to schools that are restrictive? Why go to schools that have taken certain thousands of years old stands? I mean, good Lord, the Liberty, I'm certainly not endorsing everything at Liberty University. I have lots of friends there, and I've been very blunt about Jerry Falwell Jr. and his antics and what have you, so it's not like I'm endorsing Liberty. But my goodness, their position on LGBTQ issues is about 4,000 years old. This is no mystery. So if you're gay, why go there? Unless, of course, the point is to overthrow any restriction, any religious discrimination that cuts across or criticizes or looks askance at your ethical choices. Well, there are schools in this country, schools in this world that would look askance at my ethical choices, for heaven's sakes. And that's how it works. That's why we have diversity. What this lawsuit seeks to do is to say all schools have to be the same on gay issues, on gender issues, have to be the same. University of Iowa's got to be the same as Oral Roberts University. University of Chicago's exactly the same at Wheaton University. No, that's not the way it works. You have diversity. You have change. You have schools doing different things. Now, the fulcrum, the point of opposition on this in this case is that they're saying the Department of Education is granting this exemption. And that's true. Title IX grants it. And by the way, Title IX should. We want religious schools in this country. I don't go to a Jewish seminary and assume that they're going to accept me just as I am. Of course not. I don't go to Brigham Young University, the leading LDS university, Latter-day Saint Mormon university in the world, and assume they're going to accept me just as I am, and that all my ethical choices will be affirmed, and that there'll be no one looking askance at me. That's ridiculous. So the idea that gay students would go to an conservative evangelical university that builds on 4,000 years of religious tradition and somehow expect to have it be as libertine as the University of Florida, I'm just pulling that out of a hat, or the University of Texas or USC or UCLA is crazy. Now, there's this lawsuit that's being filed. Okay, so on the one hand, it's pretty obvious that there's an attempt here to rewrite a social agenda. There's an attempt here to rewrite and to have the government force a rewriting of what gay students do not embrace. Okay, so we're trying to do some social engineering along the lines of our own ethics. Well, that I don't have a lot of respect for that, but that's fine. You have the right to do that. I'm going to say to my Christian educator friends, many of whom listen to this podcast, that we need to prepare for the day when accreditation and federal funding are not ours anymore. I believe the trend, the drift of our society, especially in a Biden administration, under a Biden administration, is towards bigotry against Christian education, bigotry against Christian distinctives. I don't think some people are saying that we're going to have, out and out persecution and putting up, pastors on crosses, crucifying them on crosses in our generation. I don't think that's going to happen. But there's absolutely no question that the philosophical drift of our society is against religion. It's against tradition. It's against allowing distinctives. It's actually anti-democratic. We all have to goose step according to the same tune, according to the same principles. I want a society of diversity. I want a society where the University of Florida can be as open to its gay students as it wants to be, but a Southern Baptist University and seminary is allowed its distinctives. That's what makes the country great. That's what we were built on. And we don't go and file lawsuits getting the government to come goose-stepping into our lives telling us that we can't maintain our religious distinctives. I'll tell you honestly, I think these gay students are going to regret the lawsuit they're filing. They're operating out of some bitterness. They're operating out of a desire to strike back at these Christian schools that may have caused them some pain. But what you don't want is a monolithic, goose-stepping, one-size-fits-all society. You want diversity. You want difference. You want schools to have different levels of different philosophies regarding ethics. That's what makes a university great. That's what makes a nation great. And in fact, the very idea of the university originally was a religious institution. It was an idea of an educational institution based on a one, all centered on the one God, all centered on one faith. That was the very origination of the university in the medieval period. So what's my point? Am I anti-gay? No. But I do believe that we should allow different levels of response to these ethical issues. I assume there are some schools in America where I'm asked not to drink. Now, drinking is not a huge issue to me, but yeah, I have a glass of wine or a Manhattan once in a while. Absolutely, have said that openly. Well, I don't go to that school assuming that I'm going to get the federal government to operate against them so they have to accept me as a drinker. I just assume that's their distinctives. They're allowed to have that. I ain't going to that school. That's all there is to it. And it's the same on a lot of other issues. I'm not going to go to a Jewish school and insist that they maintain the same views of Jesus that I do. The assumption is we have different views. So I think these students are going to regret this. I think the gay community is going to regret some of the lawsuits. And I think our society is going to regret making gender, making sexuality the heart of every decision. Every decision about schools, every decision about sports, every decision is somehow coming down to what you do with your sex parts. And I believe that we're a greater society. I believe we're a freer society. I believe we are a happier society when we have what's the French "Vive la différence"? Celebrate the difference. How great is the difference is sort of what that means. We're different. We have different views. We have different perspectives. Don't go to Liberty if you're gay. No, you don't want to do that. Go to another school. Be happy. But let the evangelicals have what they want to have. Let the Jews have what they want to have. Let our Mormon friends have the school they want to have. You can't file lawsuits against everything because what you're going to get is the Nazi state. What you're going to get is a one-size-fits-all. What you're going to get is a government determining everything, and you won't like it. Freedom really is the issue. And this lawsuit is going to do some serious damage if it's successful. Hard to say if it will be. If those religious restrictions, if those religious exemptions in Title IX are removed, then you are going to be forcing hundreds, if not thousands, of schools to march in lockstep with a cultural norm that is arising that will damage this society for generations.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.